There's a narcissism factory operating right now. It's working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in millions of homes all around the world. And the majority of parents running this factory have absolutely no idea what they're doing. This factory has a method, a simple, efficient, devastating method. It's forcing children to compete for love. Carl Jung identified this pattern nearly a century ago. And what he discovered about how this dynamic destroys children is too disturbing for most people to accept. But before we go any further, I need to give you a warning. What you're about to hear in the next few minutes might bring up painful memories. It might reveal patterns you've never noticed in your own family. It could completely change the way you understand your own story. So, take a deep breath and let's step inside this factory. It all begins with an invisible premise, a premise that many parents hold without ever questioning it. Love is a limited resource. This premise lives in the unconscious of many parents. They don't say it out loud. They might not even consciously think it, but their actions communicate this message every single day. There isn't enough love for everyone. So you need to compete. Whoever is better gets more. Whoever is worse gets less. And whoever loses, well, whoever loses gets the scraps. Jung called this an economy of affectional scarcity, a family structure where love isn't given freely. It's distributed, it's earned, it's deserved, or lost. And when children grow up in this structure, something catastrophic happens to their psychic development. Let me show you exactly how this works. Imagine a family with 2 children, a 6-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. The parents work long hours. They're stressed. They have little time, and without realizing it, they begin to create an arena of competition. The boy gets a good grade in school. The parents praise him effusively. The girl watches. She learns. To receive that same praise, she needs to outshine her brother. The girl makes a beautiful drawing. The parents praise her. The boy watches. He learns. To maintain his position, he needs to do something even better. And so the race begins. A race that never ends. A race where the prize is the loving gaze of the parents, and where losing means disappearing. In the beginning, it seems harmless. It even seems healthy. Children striving to improve, friendly competition, encouraging development. But beneath this surface, there's something much more sinister. The children aren't competing for grades. They aren't competing for praise. They're competing for the right to exist, for the right to be loved, for the right to have a place in the family. And this competition permanently changes their psychic structure. Jung described what happens with surgical precision. When a child learns that love depends on performance, they internalize a terrible equation. My worth equals my achievements. If I don't achieve, I'm worthless. If I don't win, I don't deserve love. This equation settles in the unconscious. It becomes the lens through which the child sees the entire world. It becomes the foundation upon which the entire personality is built, and that foundation is the basis of narcissism. But wait, because the dynamic is even more complex than it seems. In the competition for parental love, there are 2 main roles, the winner and the loser. And both roles create different forms of damage. Let's start with the winner. The child who wins the competition receives more attention, more praise, more visible love. He becomes the golden child. The favorite, the example. It seems like a privileged position, but it's a trap, because the golden child learns that the love he receives isn't unconditional. It's conditional. It's based on performance. It's based on being better than the other. This means he can never relax, never fail, never be simply human. He needs to maintain the position. He needs to keep winning. He needs to keep being better. And what if he fails? What if he loses? The love disappears. The position is lost, and he becomes what he fears most, the loser. This constant pressure creates what Jung called compensatory grandiose narcissism, an inflation of the ego that hides a deep terror of inadequacy. The golden child grows up believing that he is special, that he is superior, that he deserves more than others. But this belief doesn't come from a solid self. It comes from desperation, from the fear of losing, from the terror of discovering that without the achievements he is nothing. This is the classic grandiose narcissist. Arrogant on the outside, fragile on the inside, incapable of tolerating criticism, incapable of admitting error, because any failure threatens to topple the entire structure built on constant victory. Now, let's turn to the loser. The child who loses the competition receives less attention, less praise, less visible love. He becomes the invisible child, the overlooked one, the one who is never good enough, and he learns an equally devastating lesson. He learns that no matter what he does, it will never be enough, that there is something fundamentally wrong with him, that he doesn't deserve the love that his sibling receives. This message settles in the unconscious as an absolute truth, and it creates what Jung called covert narcissism or depressive narcissism. The overlooked child grows up with a chronic hunger for validation, a desperate need to prove that he is worth something, but at the same time, a deep belief that he will never succeed. He might become the compulsive overachiever, working obsessively to prove his worth, never satisfied with achievements, always seeking the next victory that will finally fill the void. Or he might become the quitter, abandoning the competition completely, retreating, hiding, accepting the role of failure as identity. In both cases, the damage is profound. The true self has been sacrificed in the arena of family competition. Let me give you a concrete example of how this manifests in real life. Olivia, a 35-year-old woman, came to therapy with chronic depression. She had everything she supposedly should have: a successful career, a stable marriage, a house of her own. But inside, she felt empty, a failure, never enough. When she began to investigate her history, she discovered something she had forgotten. She had a brother 2 years younger, and since he was born, she felt she needed to compete. The parents compared them constantly. Look how organized your brother is. Why can't you get grades like him? Your brother always helps around the house. She remembered a specific moment. She was 8 years old. She had won an award at school. She ran home to show her parents. And the first thing her mother said was, "That's good, but your brother won 2 awards last month." In that moment, something inside her died. She understood that she would never be enough, that there would always be someone better, that her parents' love was a trophy she could never hold on to. She spent the next 27 years trying to prove her worth, working obsessively, accumulating achievements. But the feeling of emptiness never went away. Because she was trying to win a competition that had no finish line. The most tragic part, she and her brother haven't spoken in 5 years. The rivalry that their parents created destroyed any possibility of a genuine bond between them. But there's a third scenario we need to examine. Some families don't have a fixed winner. The competition is constant. Positions shift. Today's favorite can be tomorrow's outcast. This dynamic creates the worst of both worlds. The child never knows where they stand, never has security, never can relax. They live in a permanent state of hypervigilance, always evaluating, always comparing, always trying to figure out what they need to do to secure their place. Carl Jung called this chronic positional anxiety, a constant state of alert that installs itself in the nervous system and never goes away. Adults who grew up in this dynamic often develop what we might call oscillating narcissism. Moments of grandiosity followed by depressive collapses, inflation followed by deflation, an emotional roller coaster that never stops. They might seem confident one moment and completely devastated the next. They might desperately seek admiration and then reject any praise as false. They might feel superior to everyone and simultaneously inferior to everyone. This instability comes directly from the childhood experience of never knowing if they were on top or on bottom, of never having a safe place, of always being one mistake away from losing everything. Now, you might be wondering, why do parents do this? Why create this competition? Isn't it obvious that it's damaging? The answer is disturbing, but important. Most parents who create this dynamic were themselves children who competed for love. They internalized the economy of affectional scarcity. They believe, deep down, that love really is a limited resource. And moreover, many parents use the competition between their children to satisfy their own narcissistic needs. The child who wins becomes an extension of the parental ego. Their achievements are the achievements of the mom or dad. Their success proves that the parents did a good job. The competition between children becomes a spectacle for the parents to watch, a form of narcissistic entertainment, a source of indirect validation. And the children, they become performers. Gladiators in an arena they didn't choose to enter, fighting for a prize that should be given freely. There's another pattern we need to examine: the use of comparison as a tool of control. Some parents don't create competition openly. There are no obvious prizes for the winner, but there are constant comparisons, subtle, insidious. Your cousin is already married. When are you going to be? The neighbor's daughter got into med school. What about you? Your brother never gave me this kind of trouble. These comparisons seem harmless. They seem like just observations, but each one carries a message. You are not enough. Others are better. You are disappointing me. And the child internalizes it. They start to compare themselves compulsively, not just with siblings, with everyone, colleagues, friends, strangers on social media, anyone who seems to be doing better. This compulsive comparison is a form of self-torture. It's an internalized competition. The child no longer needs their parents to feel inadequate. They do it themselves, automatically, tirelessly. Jung called this the introjection of the comparative critic. The mom or dad who compared has been internalized, now lives inside the person, never stops, is never satisfied, never allows rest. Jung was clear about this. Parents who pit their children against each other for love are using their children to meet their own unresolved needs. They are reproducing traumas they themselves experienced. They are perpetuating a cycle that began generations ago. That's not an excuse. It's context. It's understanding that the problem is systemic, generational, passed down from parents to children like a cursed inheritance. But wait, because there's an even deeper aspect we need to explore. The competition for love between siblings doesn't just destroy individuals, it destroys the bond between them. Think about it. Siblings should be allies, companions on a journey, people who share the same origin and can support each other throughout life. But when they are forced to compete for parental love, they become rivals, enemies, threats. The sibling stops being someone to love and becomes someone to beat, someone whose victory means your defeat. Someone whose success is your humiliation. This rivalry often lasts a lifetime. Adult siblings who don't speak, who compete in everything, who feel secret satisfaction when the other fails, who can't genuinely celebrate each other's achievements. And when the parents die, the rivalry doesn't disappear. It continues. Sometimes it intensifies. Disputes over inheritance that aren't about money. They're about finally winning a competition that should never have existed. Jung said that the competition between siblings imposed by parents is one of the most effective ways to destroy family bonds permanently. The children grow up incapable of trusting, incapable of collaborating, incapable of loving without fear. Now, let's talk about how this dynamic manifests in adult life. The adult who grew up competing for parental love carries this programming into all relationships. At work, they see colleagues as competitors, not as collaborators. They need to be the best. They need to win. They need to outdo. And when someone receives recognition, they feel as if something has been taken from them. This creates toxic work environments, sabotage, office politics, inability to genuinely work as a team, because working as a team means sharing the prize. And for someone who grew up in the economy of scarcity, sharing means losing. In romantic relationships, the pattern is equally destructive. The adult who was the golden child often seeks partners who admire them unconditionally, who put them on a pedestal, who confirm their superiority. But when the partner has their own needs, when they stop being just a mirror, the relationship goes into crisis. The adult, who was the invisible child, often seeks partners who finally give them the love they lacked, who prove that they are worthy, who choose them above all others. But this expectation is impossible to satisfy, because no partner can fill the hole left by the parents. And what happens when these two types meet? Do the golden child and the neglected child often create classic narcissistic relationships? One inflated, the other deflated. One dominating, the other submitting, both repeating the dynamics they learned in childhood and in friendships. The pattern continues. The adult who competed for love struggles to maintain genuine friendships. They see friends as an audience for their accomplishments or as competitors to be surpassed. They might collect friends like trophies, impressive people who prove their own worth, or they might sabotage friendships when the friend starts to shine too brightly, because the other person's brilliance threatens their own light. True friendship requires the ability to celebrate others without feeling diminished. It demands the capacity to support without competing. And these capabilities were damaged in the family arena. There's also the impact on social media. For those who grew up competing for love, social media is an amplified arena. Every successful post from an acquaintance is felt as a personal defeat. Every vacation photo, promotion, or happy relationship post is an implicit comparison. And the person sinks into a cycle of compulsive comparison that fuels depression and anxiety. They might spend hours scrolling through feeds, torturing themselves with the apparently perfect lives of others, or they might become obsessed with their own online image, posting achievements, seeking validation in likes, transforming their existence into a constant performance. Both patterns come from the same place: the economy of affectional scarcity, the belief that worth is comparative, that for you to be worthy, someone else needs to be worth less. Carl Jung didn't know social media, but his analysis of the narcissistic psyche predicted exactly this. A society of people obsessively comparing themselves, compulsively seeking external validation, incapable of finding peace, because there's always someone apparently better. With their own children, the cycle often repeats. The adult who competed for love often recreates the same dynamics without realizing it. They compare their children, create favorites, distribute love based on performance, because that's how they learned that families work. Or they go to the opposite extreme, avoiding any differentiation between their children, treating everyone exactly the same, denying that individual differences exist, all in an attempt to not repeat the trauma. But this denial is also problematic because children are different and they need to be seen in their uniqueness. The middle path is difficult. It requires awareness. It demands inner work. It necessitates actively breaking the cycle. Let me tell you about a man who managed to break the cycle. He grew up being the neglected child. The older brother was the golden child, the intelligent one, the successful one. And he was the problem, the one who caused trouble, the one who was never enough. When he had children, he swore he would be different, that he would never compare, that he would love equally. But when his first child was born, he found himself doing exactly what he swore not to do, comparing his son to other children, feeling excessive pride in achievements, feeling shame for failures. He realized that the programming was there, operating automatically, regardless of his conscious intention. That's when he sought therapy and began the work of dismantling the economy of scarcity that he had internalized. It took years, much pain, much revision of his own story, but gradually something changed. He learned to see his children as individuals, not as extensions of himself, not as competitors, not as proof of his worth as a father. He learned to celebrate each child for who they were, not comparatively, not conditionally, simply for the fact that they existed. And when he looked at his children growing up, without the arena of competition, he saw something he never had. Siblings who loved each other, who supported each other, who genuinely celebrated one another. The cycle was broken. Now, the most important question, is it possible to heal? Carl Jung would say, yes, but the path is long and requires courage. The first step is to recognize that you grew up in an economy of affectional scarcity, that you learned that love was competition, that this programming is still operating within you. This recognition is painful. It means looking at your family of origin with new eyes. It means naming what happened. It means stepping out of denial. The second step is to grieve. Grieve for the unconditional love you didn't receive. Grieve for the relationship with siblings that was destroyed. Grieve for the child you were, forced to fight for something that should have been given freely. This grieving is necessary. You cannot integrate what you cannot mourn. You cannot heal what you cannot feel. This grief can include anger. It's allowed to feel anger towards your parents. It's permitted to recognize that what they did was damaging, even if they didn't do it out of malice, even if they were also victims. Anger doesn't mean hatred. Anger means recognizing the injustice. And the injustice existed. You were placed in an arena you didn't choose. You were forced to fight for something that should have been given freely. That was unfair, and you have the right to feel that. The third step is to unlearn the equation. Worth equals achievement. Unlearn that love is a limited resource. Unlearn that the success of others means your failure. This requires active questioning. Every time you feel envy towards someone, ask, is this real, or is it the programming? Every time you compare yourself, ask, why do I need to be better to deserve to exist? The fourth step is to repair bonds, especially with siblings, if possible. This might mean difficult conversations. It might mean naming the dynamics that existed. It might mean building a new relationship based on alliance instead of competition. It's not always possible. Sometimes the damage was too great. Sometimes the other side isn't willing. But when it's possible, this repair is profoundly healing. This can start with an honest conversation, a conversation where you name the dynamic, where you say to your brother or sister, "We were placed against each other. We were forced to compete, and that destroyed our relationship." It might be the first time you've talked about it. It might be strange. It might be painful. But it could also be the beginning of something new, an alliance that should have existed from the beginning. A bond built on truth, not on competition. If your sibling isn't willing, or if the damage is too great, you can still do your own work. You can forgive internally. You can release the resentment that only harms you. You can genuinely wish the other person well, even from a distance. The fifth step is to create internal abundance. This means developing your own source of worth, a self that doesn't depend on winning, an identity that doesn't collapse when someone is better, a solid foundation that exists, independent of comparison. Jung called it individuation. Becoming who you really are, not the winner, not the loser, just you, complete, whole, sufficient. And when that individuation happens, something extraordinary changes. You can celebrate the success of others without feeling diminished. You can support without competing. You can love without fear of losing. Because you've discovered that love isn't a limited resource. Love is infinite. The more you give, the more there is. The more you celebrate in others, the more there is for you. The economy of affectional scarcity was a lie that your parents learned from their parents, a lie that was passed down for generations. And you can be the one to stop that transmission, the one who breaks the cycle, the one who creates an economy of abundance for the next generations. That doesn't mean you won't feel envy anymore. It doesn't mean that comparison will disappear completely. These reactions are deeply rooted. They will appear. But the difference is that now you know where it comes from. You know it's not true. You know it's old programming. And you can choose not to obey. When envy appears, you can recognize it. This is the economy of affectional scarcity. And you can choose differently. You can choose to celebrate. You can choose to rejoice in the success of another. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. Each time you make that choice, the pattern weakens. The programming loses force, and the economy of abundance strengthens. This is a lifetime's work. It's not a quick fix. It's not a revelation that changes everything at once. It's daily practice, repeated choice, constant awareness. But every step is worth it, because every step takes you further from the arena and closer to freedom. This video exists because there are people committed to bringing awareness to family patterns that create suffering. Investigating how competition for love generates narcissists isn't easy. It requires deep study of Jung, of family dynamics, of generational transmission of trauma. The super thanks button down there isn't just financial support. It's you actively participating in this work of illumination. When you click it, you help other people who are on the same journey find this content. You become part of those who are breaking cycles, of those who are creating healthier families. If you've made it this far, something resonated. Maybe you recognized the arena of your own childhood. Maybe you understood your relationship with siblings in a new way. Maybe you saw your own patterns clearly for the first time. This is the beginning of healing. And know one thing, you are not alone on this journey. Millions of people grew up in the same arena. Millions of people carry the same wounds. Millions of people are waking up to these patterns now. And when each of us does the work, the impact is greater than individual. Each cycle broken means children who don't have to compete, It means siblings who can be allies. It means families where love is abundant. You are not only healing yourself, you are healing a lineage. You are changing the future. Comment down below if you were the golden child or the invisible child, or if the positions changed. Write a sentence about how competition for love affected your life. Because when you name it, you start to integrate. And when you share, you show others that they are not alone. The narcissism factory can be shut down. The cycle can be broken. The economy of affectional scarcity can be replaced by abundance. But it starts with awareness. It starts with choice. It starts now. Jung said that the greatest task of each human being is to become conscious. Conscious of the patterns, conscious of the programming, conscious of the forces that operate in the shadows. You took a step in that direction today. You brought light to an arena that operated in darkness. You named what perhaps had never been named. That's courage. That's work. That's the beginning of a different life. The arena can be abandoned. The competition can end. Love can become abundant. And the choice is yours.